Hello my dear children of 10th standard. Here in this video we are going to study poem number 2, A Tiger in the Zoo, written by Leslie Norris. Here a poet is talking about tiger. He is comparing the tiger who lives in the zoo with the tiger who lives in the forest, that is wilderness. This poem contrasts a tiger in the zoo with the tiger in its natural habitat, that is forest. The poem moves from the zoo to the jungle and back again to the zoo. The poem provides a contrast in the mood and environment of a tiger when he is in the zoo and a tiger when he is in the forest. A tiger who lives in the zoo is locked inside the cage. He is confined. He can walk in limited area, and because of that he cannot show his real personality. His real personality is suppressed. On the other hand, the tiger who lives in the wilderness, that is forest, is free. He lives in an open area in his natural surroundings and he can show his true personality, that is, his ferociousness, his anger, etc. So, a poet, Leslie Norris, in very beautiful way, he has done comparison of the tiger who is in the zoo with the tiger who lives in the forest. So very first I'll give you short introduction about the author or the poet Leslie Norris. George Leslie Norris was a prize-winning Welsh poet and short story writer. He taught at academic institutions in Britain and the United States. He took birth on 21st May 1921. He died on 6th April 2006. Norris is considered one of the most important Welsh writers of the post-war period, that is by the end of Second World War, and his literary publications have won many prizes. So let us begin the poem. I'll read the poem and I'll explain you line by line. And the very first stanza, the poet says that he stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage, on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. Here, stalks means to move slowly. Vivid means having deep, bright colors. Pads, here, pads means the paws of the tiger, and rage means uncontrollable anger, that is extreme anger. So here in this stanza the poet is using he to the tiger, or we can say he is referred to the tiger. He says that with his vivid, that is brightly colored skin, he stalks, he moves in the cage. This tiger is living in the zoo. He is confined in his cage, that is, he is locked in his cage. The area of the cage is very limited, so he can walk in limited area only. Here, the poet is comparing his pads to velvet. Velvet is a fabric. He tells that from his pads no sound are coming. His surface of the pads are like velvet, very soft. So when he walks, no sound comes. Rage means extreme anger and quiet means silent. So here the poet is using two opposite meaning words and says that his anger subsides. But what happens if anyone is in anger? So they do something from which turbulence arises. But this tiger is in the zoo. He is locked, so he cannot express his true personality, his real personality, his anger, his rage, and he is controlling his anger. And what he is doing, he is only moving quietly in that cage. So, in the first stanza, the poet gives us the description of the tiger who is confined in a cage in the zoo. In the second stanza, the poet says that he should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. Here, lurking means hiding, and plump means fat, chubby. So, here in this stanza, a poet is talking about the tiger who lives in the forest. Deer is the favorite prey of the tiger. Here, the poet is talking about the real personality of the tiger, one who lives in jungle. What he does near the water bodies, the deer, his prey who comes to drink water. What he does, he just hides in the shadow of the long grass and silently he searches for his prey. That is plump deer, fat deer. So in this stanza, the poet says that actually the tiger who is living in the zoo, by changing his real personality, in reality, how he lives his life in forest near the water bodies, the deer who comes to drink water. He hides himself through the shadow of long grass and waits for his prey, that is deer, to come, so that when it will come, he will attack on it. In the third stanza, the poet says that he should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. Here, snarling means to make an angry and warning sound. Baring means showing. Fangs means two long sharp teeth at the front of the mouths of some animals. Terrorizing means frightening or threatening. So here in this stanza, the poet says that the tiger who is in the zoo in reality, how he would be. So he would roam around the houses which is there near the edge of the jungle, and he would snarl, means he would roar and warn people that I am coming. And also he would show his white teeth, or he would make people afraid by showing his white teeth and his claws, that is paws. And he would terrorize the villagers, or we can say the whole village would be scared. So we can say that this tiger is ferocious, is violent. Why? Because he is free. In the fourth stanza, the poet says that, but he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Concrete means a mixture of broken stone, sand, cement, and water, which is very hard. And stalking means moving slowly and quietly in a threatening way. So, here the poet says that the cage in which the tiger is locked, made up of concrete, and it is very strong, and he is locked inside the cell which is made up of concrete. In that cell, his true personality is locked. His ferociousness, his strength is also locked behind that bars, and because of that he just cannot show his strength or his strongness. So what he does, stalking the length of the cage, he just stalk the length of the cage means he just move in that length of the cage, and the visitors who are coming, he just ignore those visitors. Why he does so? Because he cannot show his true ferocious nature, because he is locked. So he ignores the visitors, because if he will see the visitors, he would want to attack on them, and he is locked. He is not free. Nobody will get frightened. So he is ignoring the visitors. In the fifth stanza, the poet says that he hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Patrolling means keeping watch over an area by regularly walking or traveling around it. Generally, the cars of police does the patrolling of an area for the security. So here the poet is saying the tiger who is in the zoo, what he does at night time, the police who does patrolling in that area, he hears the sound of those patrolling cars, and also he stares those brilliant stars with his brilliant eyes, means with his sharp eyes. So, from there, we feel that the tiger who is locked in the cage is sad and unhappy, because he cannot show his strength and true ferociousness nature, and he is confined in that cage. So, he lives a sad and depressed life. He just roams inside his cage only in that limited space, ignores the visitors, hears the patrolling cars sound, and at night he stares the brilliant stars. He is thinking about the freedom. So we can say that he still hopes for the day when he would be able to run free in the forest and live in a natural surroundings. So now we'll discuss the poetic devices which is used in this poem. Very first we'll see the rhyme scheme. So here see the first stanza. In the first stanza, the first line, last word is stripes. We'll name it as A. The second line, last word cage. We'll name it as B. Third line, last word is quiet. We'll name it as C. And fourth line, last word is rage. We'll name it as B. Why? Because see, second line, last word cage is rhyming with fourth line, last word rage. So, the rhyme scheme in the first stanza is A, B, C, B. So, dear students, if you will see or if you will read the full poem, you will see that the same rhyme scheme is used in all the stanzas. See the second stanza, first line, last word is shadow. So, we'll name it as A. Second line, last word is grass. We'll name it as B. Third line, last word is hole. We'll name it as C. Fourth line, last word is pass. Now see, pass is rhyming with second line, last word grass. So we'll name it as B. So see here, again the rhyme scheme became A, B, C, B. See the third stanza, first line, last word houses. We'll name it as A. Second line, last word edge. We'll name it as B. Third line, last word clause. We'll name it as C. and fourth line last word village. So we'll name it as B, because see, the second line last word edge is rhyming with fourth line last word village. So again the rhyme scheme became A, B, C, B. So throughout the poem the same rhyme scheme is there, that is A, B, C, B. Now we'll see the figures of speech which is used in this poem. So the very first figure of speech is personification. Now what is personification? When you are giving an inanimate or non-human object a human quality, then it is known as personification. Now see here, poet has referred he to the tiger. So the first figure of speech is personification. Second figure of speech which is used is enjambment. Now what is enjambment? When the same sentence runs through two or more lines, no punctuation mark after the line ends. So it is known as enjambment. Now you will see that in the first stanza, line 1 and line 2, okay, the same sentence is continuing in the next line. Line 1 is continuing in the second line. So we can say that enjambment figure of speech is used in the first stanza. Now in same way you will see that in the second stanza, see that the second line is continuing in the third line, fourth line. So in the last no punctuation mark is there. So we can say that enjambment. So what is enjambment? When the same sentence runs through two or more lines, no punctuation mark at the end of the line. Now third figure of speech which is used is imagery. When the poet creates the scene in front of the reader, when poet is using any action word, one can imagine the scene. So see, when the poet says that his stripes is very bright, means his stripes is very bright, or his pads is of velvet. So one can imagine that scene. See the second stanza, when the poet is saying that he should be lurking in the shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. So when you will read the poem, you will imagine. So we can say that the third figure of speech which poet has used is imagery. Fourth figure of speech which poet has used is consonance. Now, what is consonance? So, the repetition of consonant sound in a particular line. This consonant sound will be anywhere, in the starting of any word, or in the middle, or in the end. Now see stanza 1, first line. He stalks in his vivid stripes. Now when you will read this line, you will feel or you will see that S sound is very prominent. Okay, S sound is coming. Stalks, his, stripes. So we can say that consonance figure of speech is used. In same way, you will see that in stanza 3, third line, bearing his wide fangs, his claws. So here see again, S sound is very prominent, is chief. Okay, S sound is coming, his, fangs, claws. So again, consonance figure of speech. See in stanza 4, line 2, his strength behind bars. His, S, strength, S, bars, S. Again, S sound is prominent. So consonance means the repetition of consonant sound in a particular line, and that consonant sound will be anywhere in the starting of any word or in the middle or in the end. Next figure of speech which is used in this poem is assonance. Now what is assonance? So like consonance, assonance means the repetition of the vowel sound in a particular line. This vowel sound again will be anywhere in the starting of any word or in the middle or in the end. Now you will see in stanza 1 first line, he stalks in his vivid stripes. See here, I sound is noticeable. I sound is very prominent. He stalks in his vivid stripes. So see, I sound is prominent, that is assonance. See in stanza 3, he should be snarling around houses. Now see here, if you will see this line, O sound is very noticeable, or we can say O sound is very prominent. So what is the meaning of assonance figure of speech? The repetition of the vowel sound in a particular line. And that repetition of vowel sound will be anywhere in the starting, in the middle or in the end. Now next figure of speech which is used in the poem is oxymoron. Now what is oxymoron? When two words with opposite ideas are found together in a sentence, so it is known as oxymoron. So see, in the first stanza, last line, the poet has used two opposite words, quite, rich, together. So it is known as oxymoron figure of speech. So when a poet is using quite, rich, he is using words which have opposite meaning. So this poetic device is known as oxymoron. Now, next figure of speech which is used in the poem is metaphor. Now, what is metaphor? Metaphor means direct comparison without using words like, as or so. So, here see the poet has used, okay, or we can say the poet has compared his paws, means tiger's paws, with velvet, and he is directly comparing his paws with the velvet. So we can say that metaphor figure of speech is used. Now next figure of speech which is used in this poem is alliteration. Now what is alliteration? Alliteration means if same consonant sounds comes in the starting of two or more than two words. Remember students, same consonant sounds comes in the starting of two or more than two words in the starting. So here see in the fourth line where plum, deer, pass. Now see here plum, pass. Two consonant sounds are used in the starting of the word. So it is known as alliteration figure of speech. Now next figure of speech which is used in this poem is onomatopoeia. Now what is onomatopoeia? So onomatopoeia figure of speech is the use of sound words. If poet is using a word which indicates any sound, it is known as onomatopoeia. Now here when the poet is saying that he should be snarling around houses, so it is the sound which is created by the tiger. So this is the sound words. So onomatopoeia is the use of sound words. Now next figure of speech which is used in this poem is again imagery. Okay, if you will read the poem, like I have said earlier also, if you will read the poem, you will feel, or we can say you will imagine each and every line Okay, each and every line. So with this we come to an end of the poem. So again I am repeating that the rhyme scheme which is used throughout the poem is A, B, C, B, and the figures of speech which is used in this poem is personification, enjambment, imagery, consonance, assonance, oxymoron, metaphor, alliteration, and onomatopoeia. Now, read the poem, watch the video, and soon I will send you PDF of textual question answers. Thank you.